The following is a sports presentation of KULP, the Rice Belt's recognized leader in sports programming.
Coach Paul Gordon arrived to El Campo in 1964. The then young man had a lot to take in, and from what he tells me, he couldn't have had a better coaching staff to learn from. Coach, tell us a little bit about your high school football days.
In high school, I played quarterback, and I was the kicker for the ball club. And we were a six-man team, and so you didn't have enough people to hold the ball, so you drop kicked. In college, I played quarterback and linebacker.
And as far as collegiately, where did you play at?
I played at Cisco Junior College. In baseball, I played at San Angelo College. For me, being a six-man high school player, it was a little difficult, the adjustment. There was too many men on the field the first few games because I was used to seeing 6 on defense and there was 11 out there.
Yeah, that's quite an adjustment. You could say that for sure. Well, what brought you to El Campo?
Well, I'd finished up at the University of Texas. Carolyn and I were both from West Texas, but we decided we wanted to do it a little different way, and so we were coming down and interviewing and looking for a job in the Houston area. But before we came, I happened to look on the placement board at the University of Texas, and I saw a little 3x5 card that said El Campo, Texas was looking for a social studies teacher. And I don't know why, but I took that card off the board and put it in my pocket. And so we drove out and we watched them build on the Astrodome a while, and then I told Carolyn we've got enough time to go by El Campo up 59 on the way back to Austin. She said, okay, well, let's do that. And we drove to El Campo, and I got out and found a payphone and called Bill Dowden. And he met us at the school, and I interviewed with him, and then we interviewed with George Thigpen, and they offered me a job teaching social studies here. And then the next thing they did, they asked me if I'd ever played any sports, and before I knew what was going on, I was on the coaching staff.
Well, let's get to the game. You talk about coaching. How's the game changed since your playing days?
Well, in my day, it was kind of strength and attitude, and now football is strength, speed, and attitude, and the game is much faster and a lot more technical. And I admire these coaches today because they've got a lot of offenses to deal with. They've got a lot of looks and a lot of things to defense. And so it has changed a great deal.
Take me through one of your favorite memories of a former coach.
Let me just mention my high school coach first. His name was James Pennington. He was something else from the standpoint of being tough, but he was good as gold, and he was a real leader, and I still converse with him. I'm blessed that he's still alive. But if you weren't ahead in six-man football, if you were ahead 50 points at the half, you got to go home. And if we weren't ahead 50 points, we were going to work out during the half so we'd get it right the next half. And if we didn't do good the second half, he was not unusual for him to turn the lights on when we got home and we'd have another workout. And it worked. In my day, six-man football didn't have playoffs. So regional was as far as you could go. So we actually won 12 games our senior year. The other ones I'd like to mention, when I came to El Campo, my first head coach was Jack Hayes. The second head coach we had here that I worked for was Buzzy Keith. And those men, they cared for their players. They demanded a lot, but they collected a whole bunch of guys together as coaches and made a team out of them. And they collected up a bunch of kids and made good ball players out of them and had good teams.
What's your favorite story of a former player?
Well, let's go back to the 67 team when we went to the state finals. We were playing Seguin, and the shadow of darkness was on the ball club because Seguin had the ball, and they were running the clock out, and things were looking real bad. And we had a little linebacker by the name of Bobby Ryan, and he got a good shot on the ball, and it was on the ground, and we picked it up. From there, we ran it out and won the ball game and headed to the state final.
So what was it like coaching in El Campo's first state title game?
What I want to tell you about the 67 bunch is that in all my coaching years and being a spectator, I can honestly say I've never seen a bond among players like that group had. They worked hard. They lifted one another up. They had high expectations, and they told me a lot about this community. These men, I've been blessed to live long enough to still be around them quite a bit, and they still love one another, and they are a very, very special group.
Any Ricebird coach or player influence you in any way throughout your career?
Well, Matthew, I'm going to tell you something. I've been blessed to have worked with and around some of the greatest individuals that you can probably have. Jack Hayes was my first head coach, and he was elected to the head of the Texas High School Coaches Association. Buzzy Keith was the second man I worked with, and he was elected by his fellow coaches to the head of the Texas High School Coaches Association. And a guy named Bob Gillis, which everybody here still knows, was a good friend of mine and still is, and he was elected as the president of the Texas High School Football Coaches Association. And all I'll say about that is how many communities in the state of Texas can put a claim to anything like that. Jack, Buzzy, and Bob Gillis are a special, special group of people.
Well, that's going to wrap up week 3 of Retro Birds. Huge thanks to Coach Paul Gordon for giving me some time to get an interview. And be sure to join us at halftime during Ocampo's matchup with the Wharton Tigers to see which bird might be next.